We are here. At this time, we bid you greetings and thank you very much for the opportunity of this interaction today. I am Adronis of Sirius, sending love, appreciation, and gratitude to all who are tuning in to this particular broadcast being brought forward through your internet collective consciousness. What we would like all of you to do at this time is simply allow yourselves to get relaxed, get comfortable, and tune in to the vibrations of Sirius so that you may synchronize, harmonize, and align to all the information that you have to share. Also understand that all of the information that we shall provide today is simply that of our perspective, our point of view. For all knowledge, all information, all creation itself resides within your very hearts, beings, and souls. We will begin the elaboration of this presentation today as it relates to what you would refer to as the essence of spirit, the essence of the connection to your souls, and the essence of the game of incarnation. Your particular beingness, from how you understand the now moment, was a choosing. Your entire beingness of the awareness of who you are in all depth perspective, microcosmically to macrocosmically, was a choosing. That you have been part of the equation that represents the universal dynamic, and that the universal dynamic represents a shell, a husk, and that this particular husk of a dynamic shell represents the internal organs of your being. That represents your galactic clusters, your galaxies, your stars, your planets, the life forms upon them, the different fabrics of dimensions and densities, the realities within realities, the holograms within holograms, the mirrors and transverse effects of transparency that host the idea of nothingness, holds the idea of everythingness. For this is describing the internalness of your being. Because you are even more than what this universe claims. You are even more than what you would consider to be the conscious aspect claims. From the idea of the conscious, the subconscious, even to the superconscious. These are just words. They really just represent some type of relationship that you can identify through verbatim of the language that represents you as soul, as spirit, as mind, as body. These are all just inventions. These are all just creations, because everything that exists incarnationally does not even hold a fraction pertaining to what you are as a trueness to essence. Essence cannot be defined by the nature of what you consider to be your incarnations. Through our incarnations, it cannot even begin. It cannot even state the idea that that is the fraction of its being. It is even much smaller, as it were. But as you continue to move through your planetary civilizations, eras of understanding more about how you can connect, more and how you can commune, and you begin to take your first steps into becoming a galactic civilization, where you start designing spacecraft, where you start realizing that there have been hints, that there have been relics, that there have been ruins placed throughout your star system at a particular point for you conveniently to find. These are databases from God, in that way of speaking. That they all represent aspects and criteria that share much in regards to your creation. Not just your creation of man, but to you for the choosing. Because as we have stated that there is only one being here, there is only one being occupying this universe, and that is yourself. For every other being that you understand, every other self represents that of another being, crossing the plateau of another reality, a threshold into a fabric, entering a prism, and functioning together in this collaborative universe. And that is who you are. And that all of you in this infinitum of now represents the idea of flowing harmoniously through the internalness of the body that you understand the universe. And that here in now is all that is. There is no tomorrow now. There is no yesterday now. There's only now. Everything truly is. And so the whole idea really is that the prism effect that allows your universe to be what it is creates these particular forms of buffers And these buffers create the criteria that represents the hosting that is what you consider to be causality. It is the idea of truncated causality that allows you to function in the way of how you interpret yesterday and tomorrow, of how you interpret last minute and the minute ahead. These are all, again, buffers. These are all sequences, ratios that have been mathematically calculated. That is why the science of number is so prolific. Because the science of number does not deal with just, shall we say, boundaries of finite degrees, but they deal with infinitums. That is the paradox. You utilize number to actually calculate the infinite. An example of this represents the golden mean, the phi ratio. And that number is utilized to complement infinity, not to complement finite. Finite simply represents the idea of the circles that represent the lines that within contain the infinite. And this is something that much of your modern science has not yet understood. But this is basically what you could understand as your own soul moving into this prism that represents the universe. That the universe itself holds all these infinite calculations and moving itself into such a degree of balance that even when there is an appearance of chaos, there is an equivalent exchange of another particular factor, keeping that together in balance. So this is what we are saying, is that there is never a time when you are ever in an utter chaos. There is the idea that when chaos itself becomes perceived, the mind itself is incapable of perceiving the idea of natural order. So wherever you felt that chaos resides, the idea is to turn your head and to realize that order on a natural level is there balancing it out. And this is what you have come to experience as incarnated entities. That as entities you sojourn, you travel from different universes, from different galaxies to different star systems upon different planets to helping you understand an equilibrium. And that equilibrium hosts the idea of what you feel are dynamic principles that allow you to look at certain factors of what you have created. You must look at yourself as a being of a ball of light that is moving forward. And like a comet, it has a tail. It has a trail. And that particular trail is everything that you are, through your continuity of illusion, manifesting at the same time as you travel through your incarnate experiences. That tail will always follow you because that is giving you the illusionary sequence pertaining to the consumption of energies programmed, defined, and identified by yourself. And so as that takes place, you are continuing to venture yourself through reality, leaving behind these trails. Now, some people have very large trails because they hold heavy emotion within themselves. Some have much more lighter and crisper trailers because they have allowed themselves to feel liberation with all that they have experienced and are moving towards, shall we say, a higher ground within themselves. So the whole idea is not the differentiation in regards to the tail, but knowing that you all have one. It can be gigantic, it can be rough, it can be intense, it can be very, very resistant, based upon how you identify yourself on an emotional, tactful level. Then those, again, who are also realizing that they hold these particular emotions are governed to the basis of the honor of one and connect themselves to multiplicity of awareness. And it is the multiplicity of awareness that you connect, that you harmonize, that you realize, that you are continuing to pump out this heavy tail, this heavy trace of energies that you have defined. And it is the definition that governs your reality. Everything can happen, anything can happen within your reality based upon the aspect of definition. When you are taking responsibility for yourself, you are not just taking responsibility for yourself in this life. You are taking yourself into responsibility through everything that you have created, every single thing. This can be challenging for you because as you understand that your conscious self is only capable of grasping so much. And that is part of the challenge of coming to a planet like Earth, sojourning here, and being able to realize that this is the free will of free will planets, that everything can go here. At least that's how it once was. There have now been, again, a great deal of changes in regards to filters, that you understand that your Earth planet represents somewhat of a bias pertaining to positive or loving energies. So you would understand that on a ratio and a tip scale, that the idea of your planet in regards to a love frequency would move that factor to 51.5 to 53%, in regards to the idea of tipping more so to the favor of union with self, of union with others, of collective unity. That's where you're moving yourselves into. But nonetheless, there is free will here, and that you are free to express yourself in any particular way. However, understand that it goes back into your ancient biblical terms that ye reap what ye sow. And that is the most important thing. This is, again, what we refer to as equivalent exchange. And that as you are working together with equivalent exchange, you can certainly be, shall we say, a bully. You can certainly be a masochist. You can certainly be the idea of someone who manipulates, who is greedy, who corrupts. But understand that there is a retaliation in regards to functioning past what they would consider to be the state of natural order. The natural order that represents authenticity. And when you are being inauthentic, you will only continue to reflect the paradigm of all these particular mirrors that resonate with the aspect that you have chosen to express through that state of emotional tactfulness or lack thereof. So again, the whole key here is to look into the trail that you are blazing. Look into the idea of everything that represents impactful moments relating to your life. That as an infant, you are the pinnacle of innocence. But as an infant, you take everything in. You hold no basis in regards to discernment filters. And so those discernment filters will start to encapsulate much of this particular energy within yourself, because that is what you have deemed yourself to function as through that state of innocence. That is the natural graduation of, shall we say, maturity. Throughout yourselves as human beings, throughout the idea of the animal kingdoms, the vegetation, throughout the idea of other different civilizations that exist, there are all different components of maturity based upon cycles that complement the infinite calculations of number. And the creation of number is helping you to understand facets on a finite level, how it connects to back the infinite, how it helps you to back up your understanding of how the infinite is part of your life, of how it always will be part of your life, and that you move through innocence to allow yourself to be contaminated, to then move yourself into the degree of discernment, because that is basically the different type of energies that exist on a free will world. Because we hear from many of you, Adronis, this feels like such a chaotic planet. It feels like nobody's getting along here. It feels like all we're doing here is constantly having to live as slaves. That is the basis in regards to a free will universe, or shall we say, a free will universe existing within your planet. That the realization that anything goes will create the factors of where the idea of an individual that is truly equal to you can therefore become surmountable to that of a king looking down at peasants. And that is what you have chosen to create, because nobody has really intervened upon your planet in regards to what you understand as your modern era. And that through your own modern era, or shall we say pre-modern eras, that there have been a great deal of restriction from any particular type of outside force that is, shall we say, on a major level, coercing your civilization. So because you feel that there has been this absence of saying that, well, why doesn't somebody just come down here and tell us who we are? Because that would ruin the point of a free will planet. Your free will planet is by interpretation. It is reality by interpretation. And this is why you get so confused, because, as we stated, this is a planet that contains masterful souls. It is not, shall we say, the idea of what you would refer to as an amateur coming down here and feeling that they can move past this, no problem, piece of cake. No. You are all masterful souls that have come here. This is a grand university. This is not a kindergarten. Kindergartens actually have less free will. This planet, with all of its free will, with nobody telling you what's going on, with it being an open world, is subject to the state of your own interpretation. So when you hurt, you have caused yourself to hurt. When you are in despair, you have caused yourself to be in despair. And you are looking elsewhere for the idea of someone outside of yourself to tell you what's wrong. And that is the genuine article as it pertains to societal programming. Because you feel that you have been indoctrinated into systems as you come upon this planet at a very young age, and you feel that you need to cling onto these particular types of systematic processes because there's nothing else telling you who you are here. And so what human beings do best is attempt to adapt to their environment. And the adaptation of the environment in your modern era relates to the idea of these societal structures, to the idea of your schools, your universities, your colleges, your types of work, the type of people that represent morality programs, religions, atheism, etc. All of these hold particular programs partitioned to the understanding of feeling that this is how I can grasp onto these concepts to telling me who I am. And so if I continue to indoctrinate myself into these societal programs, maybe I'll get an understanding of who I am. Nope, not in the least. So now that you realize that, now that you understand, well, Adronis, what am I going to do about this work? What am I going to do about my job? What am I going to do about my education? You already realize that your job may not work for you, that your work may not work for you, that your schooling may not work for you. What have you learned by realizing it hasn't worked? And now starting to conjure up the idea of the energies that represent a complement to you by knowing what doesn't work and working more towards a path about what does. We understand that, again, you have over 7 billion people upon your planet right now. And that over 7 billion people, again, are still attempting to make sense about what they call life. But that's all part of the Earth experiment. That's all part of this unique star system that you're a part of. Because Meldek started off very, very similar. It started off in a free will way, and it eventually turned into war that encompassed the entire planet, causing it to burst. We're not talking about, shall we say, an impacting explosion here. We are talking about the planet exploding from inside and basically having shards of the planet scatter all throughout your star system and beyond it. The experiment then moved on to Mars. The exact same thing happened. A free will planet that was governed by other humanoid beings that once again became encompassed by war. And it too had an impact that allowed the planet itself to become destroyed. Migration then resumed and moved over to Earth, and Earth herself now became part of this free will principle. And that the closest disaster that could be somewhere into the vicinity of chaos, as you understand it, that would be close to Mars, that would be somewhat close to Meldek, was the destruction of your own Atlantis. And after Atlantis, that is where, again, a master reset came together. And you all started to rebirth yourselves once again, going through civilizations, cleaning the slate, and attempting to start over. But energy doesn't forget. And so everything that had represented the catastrophe of Atlantis carried itself throughout the eons, carried itself throughout the centuries and throughout the ages, because there was no convenience in regards to remedying what the factor was that created destruction in the first place. But now that you are here in this modern civilization, you are starting to notice that there are certain faculties pertaining to your own life themes that you are exploring that echoes certain types of refractions representing those points of chaos. But as we stated, even though where you see chaos, there is always natural order in the background, balancing it out. And so, intervention has come upon your planet. And it is its task to remain, shall we say, incognito, because it is not here to interfere with a free will planet. The free will planet and the people upon it must work this out for themselves. Because many of you say that, well, Adronis, why don't we just have you guys come down here and just fill us in about what's going on? You can't do that. Well, Adronis, maybe there's something that can happen in regards to a global first contact that will come very, very shortly. You can't do that. That is a violation. Because the reason why is if other particular civilizations came down here prematurely and started telling you who you all are, they inherit the same amount of karma that you place upon yourselves. Because now you have the idea of one of the grandest states of chaos, and that grand state of chaos represents a savior. A savior would be almost as harsh in that sense as a dictator, because you are basically throwing all of your energy off your shoulders and putting it onto somebody else. And now they receive even more karma than the type of energy that you were moving through, because if anything went wrong in that way, you can blame them. And now they encompass all of this energy, and now they may go through dozens, hundreds, thousands of lifetimes attempting to work off this karma. So the whole idea is that that's why any particular type of intelligent race will not come down upon your planet and bail you out. No civilization will ever do that. So this is where you need to understand that right now we are assisting you from afar, because this does not intercept with free will, because it is cloaked under a human shell. And that is how channeling, in that sense, is an appropriate measure to connect, to allow yourselves to realize that I am communicating with an intelligence. When another being is communicating in this way, it is not for you to feel that, well, is he really talking to an extraterrestrial, or is just something in regards to a cleverness? Regardless of how it is, it does not matter, because we are not here to convince you whether we are extraterrestrial or whether this is just an aspect of the conduit subconscious or the other channels that have come through and shared their information based upon interpretation, because as we stated, it's a free will universe. It's a free will universe that exists within inside this beautiful blue sphere. And so you have the opportunity to connect, to discern, to allow or to reject information. You are here as a masterful soul. What is a masterful soul's greatest quality? A masterful soul's greatest quality is mastery. And so if you are a masterful soul, you must be masterful in being able to look at what you are creating to determine through discernment if it serves you or not. And when something doesn't serve, what do? You change it.